symbolism here, they're supposed to be like a lesbian couple, and then like the two men on the end are supposed to be like their boyfriends or whatever, and they're just like fucking confused on why all of a sudden these women are together, and they're supposed to just like be a representation of how ignorant people are and how like and like because he gets like they needed to add more like characters to the scene, so they added the two people on the outside looking in on the couple, the two women who were supposed to now get together, and like in disgust, like oh, how dare they? So because during this production, like a lot of it was about like gender and the spectrum of sexuality. And we didn't just talk about transgenderism. We didn't just talk about people who were hermaphrodites, which there was talks about hermaphrodites and stuff like that. And um, this was like part of one thing that we did out of many things, and like this was specifically talking about homosexual relationships. Um, and this is keep in mind this is being proposed to like 14 through 16-year olds. So like everyone in this photo is below the age of 18.
Okay.
And you know what? Like a lot of these people did kind of have an idea that they were gay, and that's whatever. Like I think at that age you start to kind of question things.
Yeah.
You don't really know for sure, but you question it. Like you don't know. Like, but the idea that they're solidifying it as this spectrum of like fluidity is just wrong. Like you can't solidify an idea like that. You have to let these people discover themselves throughout their time going through puberty, instead of like making them stick to this ideology that like there is no such thing as this gender. It's just gonna fucking confuse kids, and they're not gonna because they're confused because they don't know how they feel because they're going through puberty. Like they're extremely hormonal. When people are hormonal, they oftentimes don't think rationally, and they make bad decisions in their life, or they get curious. Like a lot of times they get like this is a thing that has happened for years in society, where people have gotten sexually curious about the opposite gender. They've gotten curious about maybe what it was like. And like, you remember the Rick and Morty episode where Jerry's like, I always sometimes wonder what it's like to have a vagina. Doesn't mean he's a fucking transgender, like what these people are saying. It just means that he got curious all of a
Yeah.
sudden. Like he had that one curious thought. Imagine if like it's kind of like what was happening with these people in this play. Like some of these people did end up becoming the opposite gender, but they thought that, oh, I had this one thought this one time. I need to solidify that thought this one time I had this thought that this is what I am, because I'm gonna get all this peer reinforcement now because everyone's telling me how brave I am because I'm fucking transgender. And then they swap, and then they regret it later on most of the time because they were just confused as children, as teenagers, because they were hormonal and they were curious, which is it's okay. It's okay to be curious, but they shouldn't be encouraged to solidify those views like the teachers were doing with these people. They were solidifying those views and like manipulating them. But there is a condition called gender dysphoria where you can be confused about your gender. It's almost like a temporary insanity. It's because like sometimes there might be like some cases. There's like a lot of things that might cause that. We can get into that, but this is what was kind of happening, and this is what's happening in schools right now, but it's being more it's more excessive, and it's happening at a way younger age with people. It's happening at an age with kids that are so young that they have no concept of sex, they have no concept of boy and girl, they have no concept of that, but they're being manipulated into this like spectrum, this gender spectrum.
So
And
there
this
is
was at the start of like when all the SJW shit started when I was in school. That photo.
so with this photo here, I'm assuming it's very similar to what you're speaking to
It's
with
this. A lot of symbolism. I actually can't even tell you what this photo was because I can't remember this. Honestly, like a lot of this symbolism just made no sense. But some of it did have like some it had a little bit easier representation of like what we were doing. But I literally I'm literally staring at this and I can't even tell you what the fuck that means. It was so long ago.
Yeah, well, as we see here, like some of a lot of these pictures we're seeing is from 2016. It's 2023 now, so
Yeah.
we're seeing to where this indoctrination, this stuff is happening at a rather very early time, 2016, and again, to let everybody know, I wasn't even remotely political back in 2016. I was maybe 2-3 years right out of college at this point, and this was not stuff that I was even remotely political in. I was apolitical or what have you. Didn't even get into it, and this stuff was going on without our knowledge. I think the only benefit that COVID has done at all, if anything, was expose this type of stuff to parents that's going on. Because
Yeah,
now,
because the parents were at home and more present with their children versus them never being around. Like that, I think that was the biggest difference. Because I think what the case is, a lot of parents work and they're not present in their kids' lives. Like a lot, like like in one other aspect too, like a lot of parents don't know what their fucking kids are doing on social media. That's why you get shit like that's happening on TikTok with these young girls like twerking for fucking pedophiles. Because parents don't know what the fuck their kids are doing. They don't have any control over their kids. Parents are failing their kids by not being present. And it's not even really like entirely their faults a lot of times, I think. It's really hard to control your kids' internet usage and like control your kids like what they're doing in their lives.
yeah,
Because they're busy in their lives. Like, a lot of parents have to work a lot now. It's fucking very hard these days, especially to not have like, more than one person working in the family.
yeah, and this is just that's like
A lot, because again, it's a lot of like lower income people. Like this is happening too. They're being very influenced by this.
yeah, and it's a travesty in this sense. Now we have a few other pictures other than just the ones that we have here, obviously, that may pertain to something a little bit more, I guess we could say, crazy, because this is the things that we have from not just from in current day society, right? Because we see this stuff popping up in current day society and stuff like that, where it's a bigger deal. So what we have here is, you could probably explain more to this in this fashion, because well, you were here for it. Some of the stuff here, right, where you have the gender expansive youth.
Yeah, this was a pamphlet that they gave us. I think the full pamphlet is somewhere in all these files that I sent you. But yeah, like there was like they've made like educational material for this shit. Like they're handing out textbooks now to kids.
And this was happening in 2016.
Yeah.
For what we gathered.
This was the start. Like this, keep in mind, I think this was like the start of all this shit. I caught like the start of it when I was in school. I couldn't imagine what it's like to be a kid in school right now with like teachers who have like you have men wearing fucking dresses in front of your fucking 5-year-olds. Couldn't imagine.
Yeah, it's worse now more than ever, and we have, obviously, this is another one that is just as bad. I see, for me, I'm slightly a bit shocked that this is happening in 2016, mostly just due to the fact that this is stuff that we didn't really think was going on, because back in those days, at least
no one would believe anybody, and when they said this, like no one knew nobody knew like what was actually happening, because they thought I was the boy who was crying wolf. I was like telling people about it. I was like, this is what's happening at school, and they're like, no way, you fucking liar. And then the play happened, and then people showed up to watch it, and they're like, oh my god.
Yeah, well,
I can't, like, there was actually a video of this shit happening, but I think it got destroyed, because I think that enough people complained where they had to get rid of it, because I bought it, because I was going to, like, upload it online, but I never got it. I never got my copy. And I think they also didn't want me to have it, because they thought I was going to do something with it, like take it to the media.
Yeah, and this is, surprisingly enough, and this is in California, mind you, they were going to do a drag queen event here in California, Roseville, only 30 minutes away from me, and 6,000 people in California canceled the drag event because they said it was exposing to children and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So what we're seeing here is that there are people now coming out, even in California, that are rejecting this nonsense because they're not dealing with it anymore. And when you have people that are like in Minnesota or whatever, that you think that like, oh, we're gonna allow this to happen to your kids, you're dead wrong. You think you're gonna go after people's kids? It's not going to happen because
Yeah, this happened in Montana, keep in mind. It's a very rural area. If it's happening like this in Montana, imagine what's happening in the fucking cities right now.
yeah,
This was a very, like, on the lower end severity of what's actually happening in like, bigger cities or, like, areas where there's more children.
yeah, and
Like, in my town of 2,000 people, we have 5 transgender kids. Can you believe that? That's how influenced this shit got. And what I mean by transgender kids, I mean like kindergartners who think they're fucking men when they're women, or like kindergartners who think they're women when they're men.
yeah, and they do, and a lot of kids, especially at that age, don't even know what sex is or genders
Yeah.
are or anything. They don't have that concept. They don't have that reality. They're kids.
Like when you're an adult and you can make your own fucking decisions and you can like choose what you want to believe, then like that's a whole different discussion to be had. But under no circumstance should kids be fucking exposed to all this like this shit, like this like gender crap.
Yeah, and that's one thing that where we were talking about with the 18, because there was this one 18-year-old that got that died actually due to a vaginoplasty because of the surgery going wrong. And people are like, oh well, this is horrible, this is not always like this or whatever. It's like, oh well, then they would bring up the excuse of like, oh well, he was 18, right? So he would have made that choice. Well, what people end up finding out is that at the age of 10 he was getting these hormones blockers and all this other stuff, so it was already being groomed and all this stuff by at a younger
Yeah.
age that made him go into this level. So
Yeah.
so at that point it's just like, no, he was already influenced at a younger age, so that makes us come back into reality and see that, like, okay, if they're doing this at age 18, what's going on, and did this actually happen when they were younger? Because if they
There's a lot of sexual abuse that happens to children that doesn't
Yeah.
get reported. Because a lot of times kids are like too ashamed to say anything.
Yeah.
And then those
they
kids
don't
get
know what happened to
influenced.
them. They don't know
And
what
like a lot of
happened
these people, like a lot of these fucking gender dysphoria people who are like obsessed with their whole ideology is based around the concept of sex and gender and all that shit. It's like like if that's like what you're an expert on, like your whole shabam or shabil whatever is like, I tell kids about their penises and vaginas and like how they can get another one or a different one, and they're like going to kids and that's their whole fucking job. That just screams a job that's very like attractive for someone who's like a pedophile.
Yeah.
That's why a lot of pedophiles become teachers. A lot of pedophiles like become priests. Like they find those jobs because it's the easiest way to get access to children who are going to be confused sexually, meaning you can easily manipulate them into doing things that they don't want to do.
Yeah, and this is the reality that we're seeing here with the kids and stuff like that, and how horrific it is. Because what we're now finding out, and this is only been for the like first 4 months of this year, to where we're actually seeing to where they're going after kids in a great number. Where we're legitimately seeing it now, and it's become a massive issue, and they're pushing it harder.